Walk away from relationships with toxic people. A toxic relationship makes you feel abandoned, misunderstood, degraded, or attacked. On the most basic level, any relationship that makes you feel worse rather than better over time can become toxic. Difficult people are drawn to the reasonable ones, and all of us have likely had, or have, at least one person in our lives who have us bending around ourselves like barbed wire in endless attempts to please them, only to never really get there. Toxic relationships can develop in almost any environment, from the playground to the boardroom to the bedroom. You might even have to deal with toxic relationships among family members. Spotting their harmful behavior is the first step to minimizing their impact. You might not be able to change what they do, but you can change what you do with it, and any idea that toxic somebody in your life might have that they can get away with it. People suffering from mental illnesses such as bipolar disorder, major depression, or even depressive tendencies may be especially vulnerable to toxic relationships because they are already sensitive to negative emotions. Someone with bipolar disorder who is in the midst of a mixed or depressive episode, for example, may have a slightly weaker grip on emotional stability than others, making that person an easier target for toxic people. It's important to note that toxic relationships are not just for romantic relationships. They exist in families, the workplace, and friend groups, and they can be highly stressful, especially if the toxicity isn't effectively managed. In addition, both parties cause not all toxic relationships. Some people drain their energy by engaging in negative behaviors such as constant complaining, critical remarks, and general negativity. Or, they may argue with others constantly, explain why they know better, or point out the flaws of others. Sometimes people act this way toward everyone and are unaware of their effect on others. They also may not know healthier ways to communicate. Likely, they don't know how to read social cues well enough to know when they're frustrating people or making them feel like they are being criticized or ignored. But other times, people are deliberately rude and hurtful. You may feel singled out and targeted in these situations through their mean words and actions. And, no matter what you do, you feel like you never measure up or are good enough. If these scenarios are actual of your situation, you may want to reevaluate your relationship with this person. They may be causing real damage to your self-esteem and your overall mental health as well as your physical health. Some people, particularly narcissists and sociopaths, thrive on the attention and admiration of others. Narcissists feel a need to one-up people and make them feel less than in a quest for superiority. They may intentionally put you down in subtle ways or throw little insults at you if you share an accomplishment you are proud of. They also may keep you guessing as to whether or not they will be nice to you from one day to the next. Or, they may engage in gaslighting consistently. Narcissists are notoriously nasty at admitting fault because they genuinely believe that they never make mistakes. Moreover, they find it personally threatening to see themselves as less than perfect. When dealing with toxic, selfish people, whether they're aware of what they are doing is not always obvious. However, if their behavior consistently makes you feel bad about yourself, you'll need to distance yourself from this person, or at the very least accept that if the person must be in your life, you'll need to be on your guard. This change in your behavior won't change them, but it can help minimize the anxiety of dealing with them. The critical matter is protecting yourself from the emotional abuse you receive when interacting with this kind of toxic person. Remind yourself that you're not going to change them, and confronting them may only bring out more wrath without resolving anything. So put distance between yourself and them. While not every toxic relationship can be avoided, especially among family members, it can be managed with healthy boundaries, self-care, and awareness. Unfortunately, when things turn toxic, every achievement becomes a competition. Just because you've been together for longer doesn't mean there will be a beautiful future together. If you don't feel good in that relationship, you probably hope that it will be okay someday, but you have to be careful to see if that's possible. People often ignore the terrible moments because there are good moments. However, it's probably time to change if you weigh the good times against the bad times and the scales tip towards the bad times. Rather than owning their own feelings, they'll act as though the feelings are yours. It's called projection, as in projecting their feelings and thoughts onto you. So, for example, someone who is angry but won't take responsibility for it might accuse you of being mad at them. In addition, research suggests that some people who behave in toxic ways may have certain dark core personality traits. These traits manifest as a tendency to put their goals and interests above all others, while justifying their behavior to avoid guilt or shame. However, just because there may be a reason behind the toxic behavior doesn't make it less impactful. And if you're experiencing this from another person, it can be confusing, hurtful, and may even make you feel like you're at fault. Some people tend to see themselves as victim in every situation. If they mess up, they might shift the blame to someone else or tell a story that paints them in a more positive light. For example, you might feel unhappy after spending time with your partner in a toxic relationship. Perhaps the relationship no longer feels at all enjoyable, though you still love your partner. You might even worry about the thought of seeing them instead of looking forward to it as you did in the past. You might notice some of these signs in yourself, your partner, or the relationship itself. For example, you might get the impression that your needs and interests don't matter, that your partners only care about what they want. Instead of kindness and mutual respect, the majority of your conversations contain sarcasm or criticism. Going along with whatever your partner wants to do, even if it contradicts your wishes or level of comfort, is a sure sign of toxicity. In a toxic relationship, you may abandon your usual self-care practices. You may abandon hobbies you once enjoyed, neglect your health, and quit your leisure time. You've cut back on socializing with friends and family in order to avoid conflict with your partner. On the other hand, you worry that bringing up problems will provoke extreme tension, so you become conflict avoidant and keep any issues to yourself. You might be walking on eggshells. When dealing with a toxic relationship, it's critical to prioritize your health and well-being. As a result, if you're dealing with someone who severely affects your energy and happiness, think about removing them from your life or, at the very least, limiting your time spent with them. Stop trying to please them. Toxic people figured out a long time ago that decent people will go to extraordinary lengths to keep the people they care about happy. If your attempts to please aren't working or lasting for very long, maybe it's time to stop. Walk away and come back when the mood has shifted. You are not responsible for anybody else's feelings. If you have done something unknowingly to hurt somebody, ask, talk about it, and if need be, apologize. If you feel as though you're the only one contributing to the relationship, you're probably right. Toxic people have a way of sending out the vibe that you owe them something. But, unfortunately, they also have a way of taking from you or doing something that hurts you, then maintaining they were doing it all for you. As soon as you notice toxic behaviors, confront the person. Call them out on any lies or inconsistencies. Tell them you don't appreciate how they behave. Try respectful disagreement instead. You might say, "I had a different take on the situation," and describe what really happened. Stick to the facts without making accusations. Taking care of yourself involves ensuring you have enough emotional energy to meet your own needs. Part of being human is having ups and downs, good times, and bad times. Personal struggles don't excuse abuse, and you don't have to accept it, either. Sometimes there's nothing to do but stand up for yourself and move on.